Hi, I'm Leslie Ward. Today on our Crash Course channel, we'll be talking about the rise and fall of communism. After the Second World War, communism took over Europe after World War II, driving the Soviet Union to want to change the world to communism as well. We'll be receiving the end of World War II, China, Russia, the Cold War, how communism affected all of it. Let's get into it. Overall, the U.S. was a major part in the ending of World War II. At the beginning of World War II, they were neutral. This let the Axis powers gain more control than they should have. But it wasn't just the U.S. that ended World War II. There was multiple events leading up to it. For example, Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. Japan had sent forces to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. They bombed U.S. ships with U.S. citizens on them, making the U.S. have to do something shortly after the U.S. joined the war. This was a major turning point, and some German forces started to become less powerful. Then on September 3rd, 1943, Italy signed an unconditional surrender to the Allied powers. This made the Axis powers weak and helped the fall of Germany. This caused the surrender of all German powers on May 8th, 1945. Although this was a major victory for the US, it meant that the hardest part of the war was over, but Japan had still not given up. So on August 6th and 9th, 1945, the US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. August 14th, 1945, the Allied power had informally beaten the Axis powers. On September 2nd, 1945, Japan formally surrendered to the US and the war was over. Most of the heat created by Germany and Russia during World War II was because Germany's dictator Hitler and Russia's dictator Stalin had very different ideas of how to govern their territory. Germany attacked the Soviets and overtook huge amounts of territory, but then the Germans were put on the defensive by the huge number of the Red Army. The Germans couldn't even hold back, were chased until they reached Berlin. This retreat of the Germans brought the Soviets in control of almost the entire Eastern Europe. This included countries, you guys should know, right? You're watching the video, which were recovered after the fall of the Soviet Union. Poland, East Germany, other countries, Hungary, I'm hungry, were under Soviet dominance and governed by Soviet-styled communism. Communism governments after World War II. Also, North Korea, we love North Korea, and North Vietnam were communist countries. After World War II, the whole of Eastern Europe was under communist rule. All hail communism promoted by the Soviets under Joseph Stalin. Sip and bang. Oh look, we just got a gift. Oh look, it's chopsticks. Fun fact, before the chopsticks were called zoo, the Chinese invented these zoo because they like to steam or boil food, and it was very difficult to use spoons to sieve vegetables in the soup. But more importantly, something that relates China with communism is that after World War II, China becomes communist. Thanks to these Chinese Communist Revolution. This revolution was led by the Communist Party of China and Mao Zedong. Who knows how to pronounce that? Not me. The revolution began in 1946 at the end of the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 1945, and was the second part of the Chinese Civil War, 1945 to 1949. Although China joined the Allies by declaring war on Germany during World War I, The nation was humiliated by Japan when the Germany territory in China was handed to Japan at the Treaties of Versailles, which led to the May 4th movement and a series of massive student protests in China. Mao Zedong said that the May 4th movement started the birth of communism in China. Sip and bang. Shannon, more coffee, please. God, I love having a crew. Now let's talk about the Cold War. The Cold War went without any violence and was fought politically through propaganda. The Cold War lasted 46 years and was run by multiple politicians. There was a looming threat of nuclear destruction that frightened millions of people. While during World War II, as we know, the U.S. and Soviet Union fought as allies, but the Cold War was between the U.S. and Soviet Union because of many different reasons. The main causes of the Cold War was the Americans' fear of the communist attack. All hail communism. That their refusal to share their nuclear secrets, the Soviets' fear of the Americans' atomic bomb, and Soviets' dislike of capitalism. Leading up to the Cold War, the Soviet Union expanded into Eastern Europe and had an aim to spread world communism. All hail communism, which America was threatened by and did not like. There was a feeling, suspicion, and intensity between the Soviet Union and America that led to mutual distrust and did a great deal too. Shannon, where's the coffee? You're getting a pay deduction. The end of the Cold War was the end of major communism. The Soviet Union was one of the last large powers that had communist beliefs. The U.S. wanted to almost rid the world of communism. At the time, everyone was scared of the U.S., and the U.S. was scared of the communist attacks. Therefore, people wanted to comply with the U.S. and stop their communist beliefs to try and not get bombed. Sip, 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 sip. Ugh. I didn't even put my pinky up. This is so gross. Shannon, go get some from Starbucks right now. Right now. Leave at this very second and get Starbucks. Large this time, Shannon. Extra espresso. As we can tell from today, sorry folks, communism didn't make it too far. Communism seemed to fall after the World War of the second one, of course, not the first, that'll be dumb. And after the Soviet Union tried to spread it across the entire world, the failure of communism seemed to happen because of the repeating flaws in the system as well as its implementation. Communism originated from a number of writing of the 18th and 19th century political thinkers. Vladimir Lenin was the founder of the Soviet communist regime. He saw the Russian Revolution of 1917 to the stage of transition of socialism, and he wanted capitalism to be eliminated from society. Vladimir Lenin's aim for Russia was to achieve a better and much more powerful stage of communism, but it was unsuccessful. Instead, Russia was just turned into a dictatorship and became controlled by Joseph Stalin. Stalin created a one-party communist government throughout Eastern Europe. Communism resulted in the imprisonment, death, and the degradation of millions of people. But this was due to the fact that of Gorbachev. His reformist policies were what really destroyed communism. He was the general secretary of the Soviet Union. Shannon, where is the coffee? Better not be that cheap kind. Sip, sip, bang. Shannon, there's no coffee in here. Could you just give me an empty mug, Shannon? now that we have learned about the rise and fall of communism, let's go over our timeline. In November 1917, the Bolsheviks, under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin, seized power from the government in Petrograd. You know, like the gas station, but grad, like the graduation. In March 1917, Vladimir Lenin takes Russia out of the war against Germany. Thank God, we hate the Germans. And signs the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. In April 1922, Vladimir Lenin has many strokes, which places Joseph Stalin his party, because he died. In 1922, in December, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, is formed after the first All-Union Congress of Soviets. In June 1941, the German forces invade the Soviet Union, initiating a war fueled with the Nazis. God dang Nazis. Anti-communism. They hated our communism. Against the state. In August 1961, began constructing of the Berlin Wall to prevent German air forces from east to West Berlin. The Berlin Wall is a symbol of Soviet oppression. As I hate that wall so much, I'm so glad we did this next. In August 1989, a non-communist government assumes power in Poland. In January and February 1991, political demonstrations in the Baltic states reach a bad point. Soviet troops respond with an attack in Vienna, Lithuania, Riga, and many other places we don't care about because they're part of our team, of course. Well, duh. On December 31st, 1991, the Soviet Union ceases to exist, sadly, and communism disappears. Oh boy. Shannon. I'm tired. Shannon, what is this? What is this, Shannon? Get me some coffee or you're fired. Thank you very much. Shannon, do you have the camera steady? Do you have the camera steady? Okay. Shannon, thanks for watching. I was ready, so don't press. Most of the heat created by Germany and Russia during World War II was because Germany's dictator Hitler and Russia's dictator Stalin boil food. It was they like to steam or boil food. Do we even know if we're saying it right? No one searched up how to pronounce wildest. Whilst. Pronounce it again.
Whilst.
Okay,
now you're.
The end of the World War, or the Cold War, was the end of the region. At the end of time, everyone was scared of the U.S. and the U.S. was scared at the end of. Ooh, could you actually hit me with an espresso instead this time? Deduction, Shannon. Shannon smells. Anyway. There wasn't even coffee in here.